Hi, this is Érika from Small Robot Studio. In this video, I'll teach you how to improve your perception of color to become a better painter. The thing is, color is contagious. We might describe this ball as white, but after sampling several colors, we don't really get white. We get the colors that describe its surroundings. We never perceive colors individually, but rather in context of other colors. What seems to be the same color, it's actually not. Two clearly different colors can actually be the same one. Think about it this way. In my country, my height is average, but if I surround myself with my tall friends, I seem short in comparison. A neutral gray surrounded by warm colors will seem cool in comparison. Do the opposite and the result is a warm-looking gray. In the color wheel, if we use a gamut mask to isolate an area of color, this becomes our context. In this specific context, this tone is the warmest in comparison to the rest. Of course, compared to the whole color wheel, it's quite average, but we only care about the context. Just as I might be average height, but you are only comparing me to my friends. But then, how can I trust that the color I think I see is actually the color I'm looking at? Instead of dealing with infinite possibilities of context, why don't we use the most average context there is? A perfect 50% gray. How is this the most average, you ask? Well, when we see the color in a wheel, the closer we get to the center, the less intense they are. Gray is the middle between all the colors. The gray scale also has a lot of tones, and again, we will go to the very middle, hence 50% gray. By the way, these are properties of colors we need to understand and learn by heart. Hue, value, and saturation. Hue is the name we assign to the color. Red, magenta, blue, green, etc. Value means how bright or dark a color is. Value is the most important property of color. We can have light without hue, but hue without light gives us nothing. The last property, saturation, means how intense a hue is. Low saturation means closer to gray. Of course, this gray can be any intensity of value. Colors closer to gray are also known as neutral colors. So far I have shown you this color wheel, made popular by James Gurney. But as a digital painter, you'll see these types of color wheels instead. The color information is the same, even though they look different. Let's hop on Clip Studio Paint. If you cannot see these two panels, go to Window, Color Wheel, and Color Panel. To swap the shape between triangle and square, click on this corner icon. Let's focus first on the square one. Similar to the Photoshop one, this outside circle lets us choose the hue. Inside the box, we can choose the value and saturation. The top right corner is the highest saturation. Move it towards the top left corner and we are desaturating towards white. Move it down and the value gets darker until we reach black. I actually prefer the triangle version because each corner of the triangle is different, while the box has two black corners. Now, the color sliders allow us to choose numerically. They are often set to RGB. So choose the second tab, HSV or HLS. The name changes depending if you chose the square or the triangular color panel. Each slider is one of the three elements of color we just learned. HSV and HLS are technically different, but these differences are irrelevant when painting. Enough theory, let's work out our color perception. Let's start easy. We need an image with cool colors and a layer with a 50% gray square with a hole in the middle. Remember, this gray is to isolate a color with a neutral context. If you are new to all this, we can go a step easier by applying a mosaic filter on our image to simplify color. In my analogy, we were comparing heights. For color, we are comparing hue, saturation, and value against the neutral gray. Let's start with hue. Where in the hue scale will we locate this color? Probably somewhere around the cyan. Now, value. How light or dark is this color in comparison to the gray, which is in the middle? Not quite sure? Squint your eyes. This color looks lighter than 50%, so I know that it will live in this section. Where exactly? Well, the fine-tuning comes with practice. Finally, saturation. How close or far is this color from gray? As you start working saturation, the value might require some adjustment. As you can see, I am using both the color panel and the sliders. Once you have settled on your peak, make a stroke on the canvas. Now, with the eyedropper, choose the same color and paint a stroke next to your pick to compare how close you were. Do it several times and you will find a pattern. Maybe you tend to do colors darker or the saturation too intense. Whichever it is, learn it so you can go consciously against it. I tend to do colors more neutral than they are, so I need to force myself to go more saturated. Want a harder challenge? No worries, let's do a color painting study. But before we do, let me take a moment to thank our Patreon supporters. Thanks to you, we are able to bring new videos every week. Join us and access our rewards on patreon.com/smallrobotstudio. Alright, let's do a painting study. Start simple, maybe just a few objects with a few colors. Just as before, collect the color palette from your photo, make a black layer on top and set it to color blending mode. This will turn everything into grayscale. Make sure that the palette you choose is dark and bright enough. Don't forget that good values are the key to good color. Use a sketch if desired, but precision of shape is not our goal today. Start with the largest areas of color. I tried to keep these studies fast, so I tried to use as few layers as possible. Look for different colors with a clear variation of hue, value, and saturation. If you pick two similar colors, you probably can get rid of one. You'll achieve slight variations by mixing the colors within the palette. Remember I said colors are contagious? Well, to let colors influence each other, use brushes with low opacity. A stroke of 50% red in this neutral purple made its hue do a crazy jump towards red. An opacity of 50% will make this red a touch lighter and desaturated. The hue also moved just a bit towards magenta, in the direction of the purple that was mixed. Yet, it didn't change its red identity. Neutral colors are easily influenced by saturated colors. I used this same technique to create nice transition from one color to another. Feeling hardcore? Sweet! Stop using photo references and look at the world around you. As cool as cameras and screens are, they cannot beat the amount of color and light our eyes can see. Pick a cool subject and print or paint a square of 50% gray with a hole in the middle. For our Patreon supporters, I made a color picking aid for value and hue that you can print. Hold your picker in front of you to isolate the areas of colors and pick your palette. Unlike before, we cannot use the help of an eyedropper. The painting process is pretty much the same as before. The difficulty of these two workouts depend on your reference. Start by laying down big chunks of color for the largest areas. Don't forget to use a slightly low opacity on your brush so the colors mix. As you advance, new colors mixed from your palette will show up in the canvas. Feel free to pick them with the eyedropper to apply them into other areas of the canvas. Your first attempts are likely to take time, so make sure you don't pick a subject like sunsets that will not last very long. The more you do, the faster you'll get, so make this color exercise a habit to improve your color perception. That's it for this tutorial. If you find it useful, make sure that you leave a like so other people can find it. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, as we are bringing out CG and illustration tutorials every week. Become a patron and access tutorial assets, bonus content, a private Discord, and more by clicking in the link below.